Today it's chapter 4 of The Wizard of Oz, The Road Through the Forest. I've rewritten the chapter, just made it a little bit shorter. It's abridged. I'll be adding some pictures in the video. Afterwards, there are some English exercises to learn English and practice vocabulary. In this lesson, I have certain words highlighted, as you can see, and I will explain what that's about at the end. I'll be doing probably about one chapter per week, sometimes two, until I get through the whole book. And I'm just going to pick up the pace on that. I'm just putting the lessons at the end. If you want an answer key, I'd be happy to provide it for you. You just leave a comment in the comments below and I can do that. Chapter 4, The Road Through the Forest. After a few hours, the road began to be rough. Walking grew difficult for the Scarecrow, who started to trip over the yellow bricks, which were very uneven. Some bricks were missing, which left holes. Toto had to jump over the holes. Dorothy walked around the holes. Because the Scarecrow had no brain, he couldn't remember to walk around the holes, so he kept falling, and Dorothy would help him up. There were fewer farms, fewer houses, and fewer fruit trees nearby. At noon, they sat down to eat a small lunch. The Scarecrow would not eat. He said he is never hungry because he is stuffed with straw. He added, besides, that his mouth was just painted on, so he couldn't eat anyway. The Scarecrow asked Dorothy what Kansas was like. She explained that it was very dry and gray where she lived. The Scarecrow asked her why she would want to leave the beautiful country of Oz to go back to dry, gray Kansas. "That's because you have no brain," said the girl. "No matter where you come from, home is best. There is no place like home." Dorothy asked the Scarecrow, "Can you tell me a story?" The Scarecrow replied, "I cannot tell you a story because my life has been so short. I was only made the day before yesterday. I don't know what happened in the world before my time. But as soon as the farmer painted on my eyes, I began to look around with great curiosity, for it was my first glimpse of the world. Then the farmer painted on my nose and my ears and finally my mouth. But I did not speak because I didn't know how to speak. I watched the farmer make legs and arms for me too. When the farmer had finished making me, I felt proud. Then he carried me out to the cornfield and attached me to a stick and left me alone. That is where you found me. I did not like being left all alone like that. I couldn't even think of things because I don't have a brain. After a while, the birds stopped being afraid of me. One crow perched on my shoulder and told me he could see that I am not to be feared since I am only stuffed with straw. In a short time, a great flock of birds came, and all of them ate corn all around me and ignored me altogether. This made me sad, but the crow who had been on my shoulder told me not to feel bad, and that it was not my fault because I had not been given a brain. The crow said, "Brains are the only things worth having in this world, whether you are a crow or a person." After the crows left, I decided that I would really try hard to get some brains. And so now I feel lucky that you found me and that I can go with you to the Emerald City. Dorothy replied that she had hoped Oz would indeed give the Scarecrow a brain. By this time, the terrain was getting rougher, and there were no more fences by the roadside. In the evening, they saw before them a great, dense forest. All the trees were so close together that they blocked the light. The travelers continued on the road of yellow bricks, even though the forest was frightening. The light grew dimmer and dimmer the deeper into the woods they went. After an hour, Dorothy could not see anything at all. She and the Scarecrow stumbled along the road. Dogs can see better than humans in the dark, so Toto led the way. Surprisingly, the Scarecrow too was able to see in the dark, so Dorothy took his arm as they walked, allowing him to guide her. Dorothy grew very tired. The Scarecrow looked all around. In a little while, he spotted an abandoned cottage. The three went to it and entered the door, which was not locked. Dorothy saw a bed of dried leaves in the corner. She lay down with Toto by her side and fell asleep. The Scarecrow, who was never tired, stood in another corner and waited patiently until morning came. End of chapter 4. Now I'll just explain the exercises. So the first part is you look at the highlighted words, list 6 body parts that are in the text. Number 2, list 6 different words to describe a feeling. The third, another word for forest. Fourth, what expression did Dorothy use to express her love for Kansas even though the country is dry and gray? 5, why couldn't the Scarecrow tell a story when Dorothy asked him to tell her a story? He said a funny reason. Number 6, the forest was, now you choose between either frightening, tropical, or beautiful, and according to the story. What word is the opposite of brighter? And it's one of the highlighted words. There's other words that are highlighted, and any teacher can highlight other words in the script and play a game with the words. I keep thinking of more things that you could do as a lesson. For example, you could say 2 other body parts that aren't quite as obvious. One is shoulder. Oops, that's not highlighting very well. Never mind. One is shoulder and one is brain. You can take a sentence and give a sentence to one student and have them look up or find out what it means and to practice saying it. So for example, number 25 here, the Scarecrow looked all around, right? So it's just looking, you can show how that works. You can act it out. In a little while, he spotted. Spotted is another word for saying he saw an abandoned cottage. So abandonné if you're French, cottage, chalet. So you can just talk about some of what the word meanings are. Now let's keep going down to 2. This is a grammar lesson, easy one. So I try to have various lessons that follow the chapter. This is and versus but. We say and when we want to add 2 things together, like peanut butter and jelly. We say but when we want to show a contrast, like I like to play hockey, but I don't have skates, right? So but, cependant, par contre. In each of the following sentences, add the word and or but in the space. So for example, here, choose the correct word. The forest was frightening. Dorothy wanted to continue the journey anyway, so we don't use and because that doesn't really make sense. The forest was frightening and Dorothy wanted to continue the journey anyway. No, there's sort of implied, especially with the word anyway, it's implied that she wants to go despite the forest being frightening, so you need the word but. The forest was frightening, but Dorothy wanted to continue the journey anyway. So they can practice on those 5 sentences. Then down here, write 2 sentences. One must contain the word and the other must contain the word but. Finally, down here, it's a longer sentence with a little bit of geography. I plan to go to London. So in French, it's Londres. So you're kind of teaching some proper nouns in English, how to say them. I plan to go to London. It's and Paris. I will visit Italy. And then it's but, right? So you choose but not Poland during this trip. I would love to go to Warsaw. And then again, it's but there will not be enough time. And then I chose a picture I found of Warsaw. I think it's a drawing actually. And then it's Warsaw in English, Varsovie in French. And I don't think I dare to try to pronounce it, but that's how you spell it in Polish, and that's how you say Polish in Polish. Finally, part 3, simply take 2 or 3 reading selections so you don't have the little numbers by the sentences, and students can practice reading them. And it can be for marks, or it can be just for practice, however you choose. And I would suggest to have them practice to read clearly, enunciation, how to for understanding and pronunciation.